The attacks that happened at the Nord Stream pipelines back in September have made the world sit up and take notice. Not just how easy it was to blow up such a critical resource-carrying pipeline, but also how easily Russian state actors could carry it out. That has made Western policymakers asking a very simple but very pertinent question. What is likely to be the next target? No one has yet taken responsibility for the attacks against the Nord Stream pipelines, but both American and European officials have been quick to point the finger at the Kremlin. Now the next target, the next big focus, could be the extensive network of undersea cables that power the global internet. On Crux Decode, could these undersea intercables be the next target of a Russian attack? So far, very few, if any, of these internet cables, which connect all of the world's continents and represent the digital superhighway for everything from YouTube videos to TikTok videos to financial market transactions, they have never been sabotaged, or at least there's not been evidence so far of any kind of sabotage by foreign intelligence agencies or non-state actors. Yes, there have been accidents in the past, there has been bad maintenance leading to disruptions, but rarely, if ever, has there been actual sabotage. But the threat is very much real, in part because of the weak security around these cables, and also in part because of a willingness by authoritarian regimes like Russia to go after non-military targets and use hybrid warfare tactics. So on Crux Decode, this week, here's everything that you need to know about the threat to these undersea internet cables. Now, what is an undersea cable? Almost all of the world's internet traffic is carried across a global network of more than 400 fiber optic pipes. Collectively, these undersea cables span over 1.3 million kilometers. They are almost entirely, exclusively operated by private companies like Google and Facebook and Microsoft. And of late, there are companies that are non-American as well. France's Alcatel is one. And increasingly, China's Huawei also controls thousands of kilometers of undersea cables. There are dozens of these cables connecting the European Union with the United States. It is arguably the most important digital relationship in the world. Equally, there are similar networks that link up Latin America, Asia, and Africa with Europe and America respectively. Part of the vulnerability is down to the location of these cables. They are often located in extremely remote areas which are easily accessible to submarines or to autonomous underwater vehicles known as AUVs. A lack of regulatory oversight over how these networks operate also makes it difficult for private companies to protect them. Now, most of these pipelines are located in international waters. That also complicates which government has territorial rights over these cables. There are also, in addition to all of these complications, so-called choke points or pivotal areas where major undersea cables intersect. These represent some of the highest risk targets. For Europe, these include Gibraltar and Malta, where many of Europe's connections with Asia make landfall. For the United States, the New York coastline is the primary connection point with Europe and with the rest of the world. Submarine cables are the backbone of the global communication infrastructure. They account for nearly 95% of all data traffic, according to the International Cable Protection Committee. There are right now over 530 active or planned submarine cables as of 2022. Concerns have also centered around a foreign government like Russia, China, or even a North Korea for that matter, sabotaging these undersea cables. National security officials have been warning that adversarial regimes in any of these countries may also try to tap into these pipelines for surveillance purposes. Now, for a decade at least now, policymakers in the West have been raising red flags that undersea internet cables represent an easy target. They need more government support to keep them safe. Almost 2 years ago, Jens Stoltenberg, who's the NATO Secretary General, told reporters that undersea cables were vital not just for civil society, but also for military capabilities. Most Western military analysts, in fact, most Western military can quickly turn to backup satellite communications if these undersea cables are compromised. So far, the concerns over the vulnerability of these seabed cables have yet to be borne out by what's happened in reality. Like I said earlier, almost 2/3 of all detected faults on these cables are tied directly with maritime shipping, either fishing nets disturbing these pipes or the anchors of various ships and boats accidentally causing damage. The remaining faults are mostly because of normal wear and tear, because of environmental reasons. You could even have natural calamities like earthquakes and tsunamis. There are, till date, no confirmed cases of governments or spy agencies cutting the cables for geopolitical reasons. There have been 2 separate incidents, both involving Norway, where Norwegian undersea networks were damaged. One happened in November of 2021, the other happened earlier this year in January of 2022. This was allegedly because of human activity, but Oslo has so far not attributed these damages to any specific group or any specific intelligence agency. British and American military officials have repeatedly warned that Russia has the technical skills to take out parts of the world's undersea internet infrastructure. These pipelines are often located less than 100 meters underwater. They would require either a submarine or an unmanned vehicle to plant explosives at critical points of these networks. Tony Radakin, who's the head of the UK's military committee which looks into undersea cables, he told an audience back in January, and I quote, "Russia has grown the capability to put at threat those undersea cables and potentially exploit those undersea cables," unquote. Now, no one denies that Moscow has the ability to attack these targets, but what it lacks is the capacity to carry out worldwide attacks at scale to significantly break down the world's internet infrastructure. In recent years, companies have built multiple redundancies into their undersea networks, primarily to ensure that any short-term damage will not materially affect people's online activity. But after the Nord Stream blasts, all bets seem to be off. It is very likely, in fact very much possible, that if the world's undersea internet cables are to be targeted, then it could potentially come from Russia to have an impact on the ongoing war in Ukraine.